This is what life used to be like. Peace, beauty, connection, friends. But now, everything has changed. It feels as if the walls are closing in.
I think we're going to be living with the consequences for a very, very long time.
We're on the cusp of not only a climate catastrophe, but also an economic catastrophe.
This is very high inflation by historical standards. There's no use pretending otherwise.
No, don't be sorry.
Too many people, too much consumption, and growth mania.
Is it too much to say that we're killing the planet?
No.
Look, I get it. There's a lot happening in the world right now. It's very easy to feel pessimistic about the future. I know a lot of you guys are feeling that way. I did too, but not anymore. Now I feel in control and hopeful about what lies ahead. So I want to share with you how I cultivate this sense of realistic optimism. Before we start, I need to tell you this video will not be easy to watch, and a lot of you may not like what I'm about to say. But if you keep an open mind and get to the end, then my hope is this video will change things for you. So let's not waste any more time. This is my gratitude journal that I used to write in. I'm not going to sit here and preach about gratitude because the benefits of gratitude are pretty well documented at this point. But I do want to run you through something that I am very grateful for. I'm grateful to make videos like these. To be in my position is one of great privilege. I have electricity to power my laptop and phone, internet to connect to, running water to hydrate and clean myself, a room to work in, a bed to sleep in, not to mention a roof protecting me from the elements. I do not have jets flying overhead dropping bombs, or military personnel patrolling through the streets. In fact, the opposite is true. I can get into my car and go anywhere I like, such as the grocery store, to get any food that I like. The ability to get into your car and go buy food is not a trivial one. Humans have been around for the last 100,000 years, and it's only within the last 100 that we've been able to do this. These are basic things, I know, but I wouldn't be able to make these videos without them. Since you're watching this, you probably have most, if not all of these things as well. Over the last couple centuries, we have built this tremendously complicated machine. A machine that takes raw materials, mobilizes billions of people to supply energy and produce products that you and I can use. I cannot live the way I do without farmers, miners, engineers, doctors, teachers, tradespeople, drivers of all kinds. The fact that I can sit here, look into a camera, edit a video, upload it to a platform that would distribute it to anyone with access to internet is a testament to the incredible progress humans have made. What we have done by all standards is basically impossible. Okay, so what, you might say? Being grateful is all well and good, but that doesn't change the situation the world is in. And yeah, that is absolutely true. You cannot change what is happening in the world, but you may be able to reframe it. The way I have done this is by actually learning what is happening in the world. Look very closely at this graph. What you're looking at is the amount of new music produced each year over the last 200 years. And this explosion is very telling about the state of the world. Keep that in mind, we'll come back to that later. Let's have a look at the oppression of women. While the patriarchy is enemy number one, a key piece of data tells another story. This is a graph of the number of babies per woman since the 1800s. A lot has changed over the last 200 years. See, in 1800, the average life expectancy was 30 years old. Families had to be large because many kids died. Today, life expectancy has reached over 70 years old and child mortality has plummeted. Additionally, since women have become comparable to men in the workplace, and now they have their own income, they have many other options to pursue rather than just being a mother. As a result, the birth rate has decreased significantly, and this is true for nearly every country. Doesn't sound very tyrannical, does it? Speaking of life expectancy and child mortality, let's have a look at world poverty. In 1800, 85% of people globally were living in extreme poverty. That's an income of less than $2 per day. Today, it's 7.4%. Alright, I hear you. Less than $2 per day is pretty extreme. So let me show you something. Let this represent 10 million people. Think the population of London or Seoul. 7% of the world live on level 1, under $2 per day. 43% on level 2, between $2 and $8 per day. 34% on level 3, between $8 and $32 per day. 16% on level 4, and income greater than $32 per day. What you see now is the global population. Here is me on a graduate engineer salary in Australia, approximately $50,000 per year. I want to make this more real for you, so let's meet some families around the world. Apologies if I mispronounce some names. Say hello to the Wingning Un family in Myanmar. They live off $2 per day, and this is what their home looks like. Let's increase the income scale to the Guri family in Indonesia, with an income of $5 per day. Moving on to the Yongo family in Kenya, with an income of $15 per day. Finally, let's meet the Alahoum family in France, with an income of $34 per day. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. If you are earning $32 per day in a high income country, you're doing it pretty tough. In Australia, you'll be below the poverty line, simply because of a higher cost of living. The University of Melbourne released a report in June 2022 identifying the income needed to be above this line. For a couple with 2 kids, it's $1,158 per week, and for a single person, it's $616 per week. This number is an estimate of disposable income to support basic needs. Think rent, utilities, food. But this number should be higher if it properly included all the essential expenses of a modern world. With that in mind, I do not want to make whatever situation you're in feel less significant. Life is hard, and there are plenty of people on level 4 doing it tough. But I do want to detach you from your own experience, at least for the duration of this video, and show you the difference increasing incomes can have on a global scale. From the house you can afford, to the bed you can sleep in, to the food you can eat, to how you can get around. Increasing your income from $2 to $5 to $15 and to $34 per day can make a huge difference. And it doesn't stop there. The share of kids completing school, the number of countries with women having equal rights to vote, the share of children vaccinated, the share of people with access to clean water, each have been permitted by increasing incomes and a growing economy. It was at this point I was thinking, if people's incomes are increasing up through these levels, then why do I keep hearing the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? The problem is in the terminology. When we use rich and poor, there's a tendency to think that there's only 2 categories of people, the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. Between them is a massive gap. To emphasize this, let's go to a country with one of the highest income inequalities anywhere in the world. Brazil. In 1989, the richest 10% in Brazil had 50% of the money. Today, it's 41%. Still very high, but the lowest it has been in years. In fact, lower income countries tend to have higher income inequality than countries with greater per capita income. This becomes more apparent when we look at the income distributions of these countries. You can see the population of Brazil and Mexico have their income spread over a very long range. Now you can argue that the difference between this person and this person should be smaller, but there is no gap. Most people are in the middle. When income inequality increases within a nation, that nation becomes restless. It seems that the United States is on edge. Conflict is everywhere and it only seems to be increasing. But according to the FBI, violent crime in the United States have halved since 1991. And on a global scale, while there are conflicts occurring, the world is far less violent than in recent history. For example, battle deaths per 100,000 people have reached almost 0 as of 2020. Alright, so far so good. Let's talk about the greatest threat facing humanity. Climate change, global warming, carbon emissions is something we need to sort out. This is a vertical wall of increasing carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. To think this will not have an effect on the planet is insane. So the situation is serious, very serious, but not apocalyptic, because even on the environmental front, there is good news. For example, the number of deaths due to natural disasters have crashed. The amount of natural forests only decreased by 10% in the last 30 years. New data shows that the planet is getting greener. And did you know that in 1996 giant pandas, tigers and black rhinos were critically endangered? Today their populations have increased and they are no longer critically endangered, just endangered. Few people know that out of the 195 countries in the world, 191 has signed the Paris Agreement. This is huge. It means that the countries of the world have acknowledged increasing global temperatures as a threat. Contrary to what we see in the media, nearly the entire world has come to an agreement. What we haven't agreed on is to what priority should rising temperatures have in relation to every other problem on the planet, like poverty and vulnerability. That discourse is necessary, as we shall see, but you should remember good things are happening, and slow change is still change. The path to decarbonation needs to be carefully thought out and executed. Otherwise, people are at risk of being thrown back into poverty where the world was far worse for both people and the environment, which is something I would like to avoid. So the world is a lot better in a variety of areas than what the common narrative tells us. Everything I have gone through was introduced to me when I read this book, Factfulness by Hans Rosling. It's brilliant. If there was one book you should read, it would be hard to go past this one. But here's what really baffles me. Han has this quiz, 13 questions, 3 choices. Do you know what he found after testing people all around the world from all types of education levels, including the experts who make the policies? They're wrong. And not just a little wrong, very wrong. So wrong most scores are below random. That means even if you randomly selected the answers, you can expect to get 4 to 5 correct on average. But most scores struggle to achieve 30%. How is it that basically everyone's understanding of the world is so wrong? Han presents 7 instincts we all have to answer this question. I think his assertions are correct, but I want to explain it using information I have learned in another book that seem to connect the dots at a more foundational level. And so it all comes back to this. Feelings. See, people are not answering the questions with what they know. They are answering the questions based off how they feel about the world or a particular topic. There is a specific feeling I think we are more sensitive to above all else. Pain. Suffering. There's probably isn't anything more real than that. There is no shortage of suffering in the world. That's clear for all to see. So to really understand where we are, we need to unravel how emotions are made. You have something called a body budget. It's your brain adjusting energy levels to keep you alive and well. If you have ever wanted to have a nap after eating a heavy meal, that's your body budget adjusting. Now your brain is making these adjustments all day, every day. To do that efficiently, it has to make guesses about the future. Your brain makes predictions about what is going to happen to you. The body budget adjusts accordingly to these predictions and produces a variety of sensations in the body. Neuroscientists call these sensations affect, from pleasant to unpleasant, from low arousal to high arousal. Imagine you're walking at night in an unfamiliar city alone. There's no one around, and yet you can feel your heart starting to quicken, and butterflies swell in your stomach. Your brain predicts you are not in a safe environment and adjusts the body budget into alert mode. This prediction is based off 3 things: the original state of the body, the environment, and your previous experiences. In an attempt to make sense of the feeling, your brain searches through your vocabulary and finds a word to best describe the state you are in. In that moment, an emotion is constructed. Fear, anxiety, anger are all likely possibilities. You have just experienced a powerful and visceral emotion. How can anything that feels so real be wrong? Yet it was wrong. You were never in danger. This is called a prediction error. Our brains are making these prediction errors all the time. We generally don't notice it because the brain is extremely good at correcting the error. Have you ever been hiking and almost went into cardiac arrest because there was a snake at your foot? But when you look down, you realize it was just a stick. That is prediction error and correction at work. Now let's imagine a different scenario. There's a boy who just got brutally rejected by a girl he really liked. This is just another data point in a data set proving to him that he is not enough. He sees a bunch of other guys having the same problem, another data set that confirms his own. There's only one possible scenario. Women are the problem. Women are the enemy. So whenever he sees a girl he finds attractive, the brain predicts an enemy. The body adjusts accordingly, and emotions like bitterness is constructed. The inverse is also true. Imagine a girl who has only had negative experiences with men, in a culture that constantly describes human history as an oppressive patriarchy. So you have the individual dataset matching the cultural dataset, and so all men become the perpetrators. The brain of the girl predicts an enemy, and the body budget adjusts accordingly. Emotions like hate and resentment are constructed, and the result is this new age feminism and the condemnation of men at the individual level. This could also explain why political discussions between opposing parties can rapidly become heated and sometimes violent. They hear these political buzzwords and then boom, prediction of the enemy. All reason and logic goes out the window because it's time for war. Maybe this explains why there is a prediction of resentment towards people with wealth, because instances of greed and exploitation, not because of compassion for the poor, or a prediction of fear and distrust towards institutions because of instances of control, corruption, and a tyrannical use of power, or a narrative about a climate apocalypse which causes a prediction of many emotions, none of which are good, and the result is a very calm young adult becoming the spokesperson for the earth. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. The neuroscientists may say that I'm oversimplifying this, and perhaps I am, but I think it's useful thinking about these cases as prediction errors, because it at least attempts to explain why people are having such emotional responses to what is happening. It is prediction errors originating from places of pain and suffering, which is both induced by the perception of the world and the way one lives their life. The worst part is the data that the brain is making the prediction of is believed to be true, and because no one is listening to each other, the error does not get corrected. Instead, the prediction of the enemy intensifies, resulting in a world that feels like it's about to collapse. So the way out is this. First, you acknowledge your emotions have been constructed and may not represent reality. What you feel may not actually be based on facts, but instead based off instances from an incorrect dataset. If you can lean into that with curiosity, you can begin to upgrade your worldview. As your worldview becomes more aligned to reality, you can have immense gratitude for the progress humans have made. So that's why the state of the world doesn't bother me. Humans have overcome tragedy after tragedy. And here we are, living through an explosion of new music, an explosion of freedom, and an explosion of creativity. The world we live in today is a result of capitalism, competition driving innovation, and technology that legitimately solve world problems. Because of industrialization, the world is no longer a zero-sum game. As we have seen, wealth has increased globally. We cannot attribute all the progress to the capitalists either. You see, every step of the way, there has been activists popping their heads up and saying, we can do this better. We should be better. For example, women having the right to vote without being drafted, increases in minimum wages, the introduction of a 40-hour work week, better codes of safe work and practices. On the environmental front, conservationists have been working tirelessly to now have over 15% of land and 18% of marine areas around countries protected. Every step of the way, conflict has been part of the process. Lefties, righties, capitalists, socialists, individuals, and institutions have worked together and fought against each other, and have worked together again to get the world to where it is today. I do not see why the conflict I am witnessing now is anything different. We have solved a lot of problems, and there are many left to solve. Because there is no single approach to the problems that remain, different people will have different ideas about what should be done. Since humans are highly emotional creatures, those discussions will be messy and often unproductive. While nothing is guaranteed and nature is a bloodbath, I think in the end we'll find our way, as we have done before. So that brings me to you, my dear viewer. Here's what you can do to feel less hopeless in this tumultuous world. Remember, your feelings are not reality, and be grateful for the tremendous progress humanity has made. Be aware of what's happening in the world, so you can be prepared and make the best possible decisions. But above all else, just live your life. At the end of the day, there's not much you can do about everything we have talked about. I made this video because I want you to know you have a future, so do what you can to make the most of it.